as you can see, this is the last drawing that I've just completed just a couple of days ago. And now I'm on my, what should I do for my next drawing? So let me give you some ideas of how I start a very drawing. First of all, get a clean sheet of paper, and I do what we call little preliminary sketches. And I just start doodling things on the paper. Should it be a birdhouse with a bird or something else? Then I hit upon the idea, well, maybe I'll just use some corn. So I started to just sketch in some things here. Corn, maybe 3 birds on corn, and then maybe the idea of a sunflower. So then I started doodling over here a little bit more, and then all of a sudden I think it just come to me, I know what I want to do. So what I do is, I do a little larger version of this. In other words, here's the sunflower, and I thought, well, these usually blue jays sit on sunflowers, so I was going to do a blue jay in here, and then have these corn coming out, maybe 3 corns in an upright position, and then have the stalks behind it to show that it's a field of corn, and then 1 sunflower. I haven't decided exactly what the birds are going to be, but as I get into this thing, then I'll start deciding what birds will go on each particular pieces of corn. So from here, what I do is transfer all of these onto a good piece of paper. And what I do here now is very, very distinctly draw everything exactly the way it should be. Now here's the piece of here's the sunflower, and on the sunflower I was going to have this blue jay, and then I will get models here from the museum, and so I have the right color, and then have to move it around a little bit, and then I haven't decided as yet what I will be putting on the corn. Possibly to get some color into this thing, I'll probably put like a cardinal and probably a chickadee, maybe another bird. But usually, the number of birds usually use about 3 birds or 4. And in most cases, like here one I did some time ago with all blue jays on corn, and as you see, there were 4 birds on here. So this is the idea of just starting a drawing fresh. I had no idea this morning when I got up what this was going to be, but as I put something down on paper, then it all comes to me, and it starts working, and my ideas start creating. Then usually after this is all done, penciled out very neatly and very precisely, and then what I do is I use what they call a rapidograph pen, and these are very, very fine nib pens. As you can see, they're just hairline, and very neatly do I go over each and every one of these and draw this thing with the pen and go over it very, very nicely in all the detail. All the feathers are put in, and after I finish that and everything is done with the pen and ink, and then what I use is these pastel pencils that I use to color everything in, and it's called the pastel pencil, and you just work it right on in. And what I do is, to make everything nice and smooth, I use a Q-tip to kind of smooth it out on here. And that's primarily how a drawing is started.
Well, that certainly is interesting how you put all those drawings together like that. I wanted to go back to the calendar we were talking about earlier that you produce every year, and you have the drawings for each month. You've been doing that for, what is it now, 17
Well, 17, this will be my 18th year.
This will be your 18th.
Yeah.
Has that evolved at all over since the time you started doing it up to now?
Well, yes, it has. At the beginning, I was just doing calendar. They were all done in sepia color and just pen and ink. And then the second year, I added a little color not to the drawing, but just to the portion of the calendar portion of it. And then a few years later, people just told me that they'd like to see color in it. And at that time, I was doing waterfowl calendars, which were very successful. And I got into wild birds, and then I decided to do the wild birds, and that's when I started adding color. And once I added color, and this just was a kind of an instant success because of I'm probably one of the only ones in the country that does this type of a bird, and also the technique that I use is very unusual. In fact, I don't think there's anyone in the country that uses the technique that I use for drawing wild birds.
And when you actually draw the different wild birds, are there any particular types that you like to work with? Or you just do a broad expanse of different types of birds?
Well, let me say this. Probably the most prominent bird is the cardinal, then along with the bluebird, and then the American goldfinch, and probably the chickadee and the hummingbird. They're probably the five of they're probably five of the most important birds that people like.
And I also understand over the years you've had some pretty major accounts that you've worked for different companies and corporations over the years.
Yes, when I had my graphic design firm, I worked for companies like PPG Industries, and I had 3 divisions of PPG Industries that I did work for. I had the Westinghouse Corporation, I had the Port Authority, I had Duquesne Light Company, and probably my major account was West Penn Power Company, which today is Allegheny Power System, and a lot of other small independent accounts that I had. And these were, I had these, and people just brought this work into me on a regular basis, and all we had to do was just produce the work.
I see. Well, Mr. Hnat, it's been a pleasure talking with you here today. Your work is very beautiful and very lifelike, and we appreciate you sitting down and talking with us here today.
Well, thank you, Chris. I enjoyed talking to you.